And so that's, as it turns out, where Jewel said the smell was coming from.
Oh.
So
You think you would know that smell?
It was coming from inside the house, just like in those horror movies.
I had to wait to hit record for the stripper to leave Patrick's house. Anyway, no.
And that's why I think Jewel is a wonderful person. And I'm glad I got that out of my system at last.
I'm Jewel Sage, resident of College. That's my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. We're still here to do Will Penny. So, guys, Charlton Heston, Donald Pleasance, they're up opposite each other here. Donald Pleasance is playing the heel. This is a really interesting movie, and I tell you why I love this movie most, because some Westerns you see dealing, a sheriff or a lawman enforcing the law. Here in Will Penny, the law is just too far away to help. So you're sort of left out in the open country to fend for yourself. And that's something I've always enjoyed about watching the movie Will Penny. It's sort of how things get escalated here in this movie, that an elk gets shot, and, well, Donald Pleasance's family, that elk is ours. I love this because it's such a good movie that you have such well-accomplished actors, and it's still so good. And hey, there's Christmas in this movie.
It's good despite having well-established actors in it.
There was I was trying to get some more interesting comments since you and I have already done this one. There was a critic at the time who said, the villains in Will Penny are so unbelievable and so unrealistic. And I'm like, I read that and I was just like, are you out of your effing mind?
Have they researched anything about the West?
That Donald Pleasance entire performance in this film, it's creepy. I would not. I mean, normally
just the voice.
Normally, you look at Donald Pleasance and you're like, yeah, I could take him. He's 5'5" and $150. This is a guy. I'd put it, I pun intended. I'd put him up against Michael Myers because he's a lunatic. And Bruce Dern is a great. What do you call it? The bad guy in wrestling, Joel?
The heel.
Heel.
He plays such a good villain in everything I've ever seen him when he plays the villain. And both of them, Daddy, can I kill him now, Daddy? And he's like, got his knife out. Come on, let me cut him, Daddy. And we are veering off very quickly with those two over into Deliverance Country.
Yeah, they're one step away from Ed Gein.
Yeah, and I don't buy that argument. I think that's ridiculous.
Which argument?
They must have watched a different movie.
Oh yeah,
unbelievable and unrealistic.
I already forgot it.
Yeah,
it was so. I mean, seriously, it was so fatuous. That's just like But an interesting read on where critics were at the time. Before really the culmination of stuff like that and something like Unforgiven, or just where you see how terrible people in the West can be.
I'm not going to name names, but I have a relative that Donald Pleasance's character could be based on. Thankfully, it's not, in my direct line of ascension or descension, however you want to phrase it. But I watched this movie and I'm just like, oh, hey, there's so-and-so. And it's just uncomfortable at times. It's that good.
I've told you stories about the Rosenbalms of Claxton.
Yes.
That I've heard this from totally independent people. Butch is not like this. Butch is a civilized, human. But that there are people perhaps somewhere laying off the family tree who you do not mess with. That they take care of business in a big way. So when he says that, he's not whistling Dixie, so to speak, but yeah, he's quite serious.
I'll say this: the villains in this movie are very entertaining and interesting, and they plot, amongst themselves. The Donald Pleasance shows why he's the leader of this, not just because he's the dad of his family. He's the brains of the outfit.
It is a heartwarming movie, but it is also harrowing. And the fact that they combine both those things, I think it makes the heartwarming stuff matter all the more, because you see the kind of threats that they are up against, and it makes Joan Hackett's character seem both stronger and just sadder. It's like, oh my God, you poor woman, you really don't know what you're bringing your son into. And I think at the end of the movie, Jewel, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I'll bookmark that, please. No, seriously. That when he leaves at the end, he says it's too late for me. I think his concern is, I am just sullied by this blood of this other society, and now that I've gotten rid of the danger, you don't need to have. I don't know when I might teach the button the wrong lesson. Or, I think he kind of, that's a really, just jumping ahead, why do you think he says it's too late for me? Which is a really wonderful, mysterious line.
He, at that time, is where a lot of people are in their mid to late midlife. And I can't speak for Joe, I can't speak for you. You get a little, I don't know if lazy is the right term, but you're comfortable where you're at. You know who you are. You may show up to your friends and act a certain way, but when you go home, you're like, yeah, that's, And unfortunately, he's just like, he's. I mean, I'm married, but you knew me when I was in my single days, and you're just saying there's a point where it's just like. I mean, there's been a few women I've known. It's just like, nah, it's too late. If I'd met you 10 years ago, we could have been great, but he's just not at the point, and probably now will never be at the point where him and Joan Hackett can have something, even though she's perfectly willing to give it a try. She
accepts him. She really accepts him. She gets him.
And I think if he could have said that line, and then she's like, like grabs his hand. I'll teach you. We don't start having foreigners saying, "I want to know what love is." But I think if they had ended up together, I think this movie would have made a lot more money. But I like this ending so much better.
Oh, yeah.
Any person of a certain age can look at that and go, "Okay, yeah, I get that."
I think too, with Joan Hackett's character. Remember, she's getting led by a man she pays a man to take her and her son across the country. Well, he abandons them. And that's the thing too, like Will Penny calls that out to her attention. And she's a character, her character learns very fast, very quickly about the situation and about people in general. Donald Pleasance, you sort of fear for them, because Pleasance's character, when he shows up, it's like, what are they going to do? And she just, okay, I'm not going to, she's afraid of them, but she deals with them. She doesn't try to she knows how to trick them. She doesn't try to show fear in a sense, but she's very brave. She's very brave around them. And I like that. They don't try to make this overbearing female protagonist, but they make a very believable female protagonist. This isn't Cynthia Rockwell or who am I thinking of? This isn't Claudia Carnell, but this is something completely different than what you see in most Westerns. It's a woman with a child who is willing to fight for her child and the safety of her child.
It's a wonderfully strong woman. I think what Pleasance and Dern were afraid of, what their characters were afraid of, is that she was going to make them take a bath.
Yeah.
I'm churning butter. And there were probably cut scenes of them very worried around the campfire. But
I'm not churning that butter.
I'm not taking that bath. He's going to make you take a bath, son.
Bruce Dern is still around, right? He's still alive, isn't he?
I think so.
If he's not, Bruce Dern continued to act and make appearances years after his death. Just as desiccated as he could be. I don't.
Yeah.
Is Bruce Dern still alive?
87.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Cool. He was in a WWE movie with Paul Levesque, who's Triple H, in wrestling, and he was now. Me, Butch, and you know this. He plays the villain 99.9% of the time in movies,
Who?
and it's like when I seen him, I said, "Well, he's the heel." And somebody's like, "How do you know that?" I said, "It's Bruce
Dern.
Dern. How do you not know he's the heel?"
And his daughter has this weird kind of Charlie Brown mouth, where when she's upset, it looks like a Charlie Brown character who's upset, and when she smiles, it looks like she's frowning, and when she frowns, it looks like she's smiling. Go back and watch Jurassic Park or Wild at Heart. Laura Dern's got a strange mouth. I'm just going to say it.
Good actress, though.
She's a lovely woman.
No,
Have either of you seen Nebraska?
no, I have not.
Bruce Dern?
No.
Oh my God. He's not a bad guy. He's basically just an old guy. If you have any attention, watch it. I watched this film, and I'm not ashamed of Nebraska. Of course, we watched Will Penny too, and I know we're completely off track. And
You're
I'm not
welcome,
gonna lie, I teared up a few times because his character made me think of my grandfather,
Really?
my dad's dad, so much.
I gotta watch it.
And it's just, it was like seeing my grandfather again, because my grandfather was very much, once he got an idea in his head, you weren't getting it out, and that character has that same kind of thing, and it was just like, I don't know. It was, I got, like I said, I get to spend some more time with my grandfather, who's been gone about 15 years now. So
what a gift!
What
a gift!
It's that's something, we've all watched a lot of movies, and we've enjoyed them. We've not enjoyed them. They've taken us places and shown us things, but that's the kind of thing you're just like, wow, I didn't just watch a movie. I had an experience.
That's great. What a gift.
Yeah.
Jewel, it looks like you're flying through the monolith in 2001. All these different lights are flashing on your face.
No, I got notifications popping up, and I'm like closing them because they're trying to come open. But no, with this movie, I really like how, because it's not a movie that has like desert porn. But it has a very rough, open range look to it. And you have Will Penny, who gets tasked with guarding certain things or patrolling certain areas. And when he comes upon his shack, that's when, the female woman you saw earlier is in his shack, and he's like, "You can't be here," because he says about whose shack it is. And he goes, "Who is that?" He goes, "That's me." And then you get Donald Pleasance's character and his family jumping him, leaving him near death. And it's like, and if it weren't for her, he would have died. I mean,
well, he didn't have his frying pan. He engages in some good frying pan foo at the beginning of this movie. He does.
One thing this film does really well is at the beginning, they're on a cow trail, and they've reached toward the end of it. They see this deer. Lee Major shoots it, and then come to find out, here's Donald Pleasance and his wacko family, and then here's our main characters. I'll call them the heroes, and they kind of get into it, and they kill one of Donald Pleasance's sons. Well, then Donald Pleasance is sitting there like, "You shall have the vengeance of the Lord," and I don't do a good Donald Pleasance, but
okay.
he leaves, and then they take their friend Frenchie, Anthony Zerbe, to town so he can get work done and all this. And I honestly forgot, the first time I watched this film, I forgot about Pleasance and Dern. I wasn't expecting them to come back. I was like, okay. And then when they show up, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
How about a young Lee Majors in this movie?
His let's see, his first credited role.
Yeah.
He was in the previous movie, but he wasn't credited.
He does a good job. I mean, because his character shows back up in this movie.
Hey, Joe, you see this hand?
Yes.
It shook Lee Majors' hand.
I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
I like the stuff with where we saw Lee Majors in the future as the Fall Boy with the Legion of Superheroes.
Those were some good episodes.
They were good episodes.
So what you guys from Charlton Heston's movie list, where does Will Penny rank with both of you guys?
Pretty darn high.
Oh, I would say easily top 5.
Yeah.
Top 5. A, because it's an amazing movie. B, because of how Heston himself felt about it. And he was not a guy to brag about his own acting. And I don't even think Heston said, I was really good in that movie. He just said, I really enjoyed making that movie. That movie was really important to me. When I think of the movies I've done that I got the most out of, Will Penny is usually at the top of his list.
Yeah, because I reread all the sections in The Actor's Life, and then I read in The Arena about this film. And you're right, he doesn't go, I was really good. He talks about how good everybody else was, what a good job that the director.
Gracious man.
And, we've talked about this a little bit before. Big names eventually get a little typecast.
Yeah.
Heston was playing Charlton. I mean, you hired Charlton Heston. Yeah.
He's got bills to pay.
So you didn't really have this. Let's go do an indie film for $1 million. So this was his way of kind of breaking it out. I mean, this isn't Moses. This isn't Judah Ben-Hur. This isn't George Taylor. This is a guy named Will Penny. But it could be most any guy that's a decent human being and trying to just make his way through. And yeah, if it's not top 5, it's at least top 10, but it's probably is top 5. What about you?
Definitely top 3. This is top 3 for me. Because and here's again, I'm looking at his whole body of work because number 1 to me is the 10 Commandments. I love Charlton Heston in the 10 Commandments. That's one of the first Heston movies I saw as a kid.
It was one of the first. So besides Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. And number 2, and I'm not trying to keep religious, but Ben-Hur. I mean, it's
a great movie. He won an Oscar for that.
Yeah. Omega Man would be 4, 5 would be Planet of the Apes, but that would be my top 5 for Heston movies.
Those are really great movies, and he's wonderful in all of them. I mean, man, I got to see Omega Man at a point when I desperately needed some American entertainment. I was in England, and I never got over jet lag. And so they would have these movies late at night, as TV stations often do, and the BBC was running Omega Man. I had never even heard of this movie. And wow, what a dose of everything great about America to see when you need some America. Man, Omega Man.
My parents, it was on a Sunday afternoon. We went downtown Knoxville up to where Children's Hospital is, and then I can't think what the name of the other hospitals. They were visiting somebody. Now this is like 1980 or so, and there was a little waiting room with the TV. And I mean little. Your room right here is double the size of that waiting room, but there was one little TV, and they're like, you just stay here. We're going to go visit whoever they were visiting. I don't remember. And it was Omega Man, and I was just like, 2 minutes into it, I was just staring at the TV.
I had the same experience. Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. And all the things you come up with, Last Man on Earth, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do that, I'm going to go loot the Modern Art Museum, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I remember whoever it was in the hospital that my parents went to go see. They came down, they're like, okay, we're ready to go. I'm like, Can we stay like 5 more minutes? Can we stay like 5 more minutes? And just, I honestly think that's what spurred me on towards appreciating and loving Night of the Living Dead so much. Because
I can see that.
Again, it's, you've got that progression with Last Man on Earth, and, the world's gone to shit. And what does this guy do? He
And it's
whatever he wants.
a movie that helped program me to love the writing of William Peter Blatty, because all of that snappy dialogue that Heston has, where he carries the first, half hour, 35 minutes of the movie alone. Your move, Imperator, balls, and things like that. Sunday I was dressed for dinner. And, quoting back at Woodstock, no, they don't make them like that anymore. All of that was never a cop around when you need one. All of that was Blatty, who was a comedy writer at the time, was the script doctor.
If you could put Charlton Heston in a role he maybe should have played, what role would it have been?
Oh, Captain Picard.
Yes.
Especially the way Picard was initially written, which was the statesman-like, scientist, leader figure, equal parts an intellectual and a military leader, the Gene Roddenberry ideal man for his own middle age. Yeah, sure, Captain Picard.
Butch?
I've actually had this thought for 20 years now. He would have been in Star Wars Episode 1, and I'm not saying this because he picked the other big Star Wars franchise. He would have either been the Senate leader or the president, the chancellor, whatever the term they use is in Star Wars.
Chancellor,
yeah.
Valorum.
But I would not take the role as written for Terrence Stamp. This would be a guy, good guy, working hard. He's gotten a little old and things are slipping by him, and that's how Palpatine is. Or, and I actually just thought of this, so this may be horrible, Qui-Gon Jinn.
Oh, wow.
He would be the end of the Golden Age.
Yes.
And, I can just imagine him laying there with Ewan McGregor. He is the chosen one. I do not do Heston as good as Patrick. Patrick does an amazing Charlton Heston. Yeah, but I can just see that scene in my head.
That would have been great. The problem with my Charlton Heston, though, is it becomes Red Fox very easily. But on that topic, what part don't I want to see Charlton Heston in? And that's really true.
Who I would like to see Heston make a movie? Well, wish he'd made a movie with
who?
Sir Christopher Lee.
Well, they did.
But I'm talking like, no, not Waiting for Godot, but a movie where they're really going.
No, they did. They did Three Musketeers.
No, yeah, but I don't know. I just want them interacting more, talking. I want those two voice.
Yeah.
Because
there are scenes of Richelieu and whoever Christopher Lee played, Rochefort together.
Yeah,
but I see what you mean. Really going toe to toe.
Yeah, because Christopher Lee, who kneels down, you gotta see that scene where he kneels down to Charlton Heston's character. It's so good.
Well, yeah. The only problem with Charlton Heston as Richelieu is that Richelieu was a little man, and so George MacDonald Fraser wrote that. I don't think he knew that he was going to have all 8'9" of Charlton Heston, playing the part, because as Dr. Zayas says, when Charlton Heston stands up, it's like the Lincoln Memorial, stood up and started walking around town. He's a big guy.
Well, Christopher Lee's no short guy either. You got to nail him down.
So really a big man. That's why, and Joel, that's why I think, you pointed out his kneeling is so funny.
Yeah.
Think of them as like a Superman Lex Luthor thing. A vibe going on. Not that I wanted either one of them to play Superman, but.
Well, okay. So you've got, oh man.
Heston is Golden Age Superman.
Well, I was going to say Heston in the Dark Knight as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And then you get Christopher Lee as Alfred.
Yeah, this is the vibe I'm talking about.
Now that they're both old men, because you get to that weird point where suddenly the old man in your life is kind of a contemporary, and suddenly you're both dealing with aging. Great.
What about you, Joe? What role would you put him in?
I have him one for television and one for a movie, and I like the actor who played MacGyver's grandfather, but I wish they'd have got Charlton Heston to do it because it had made sense. I think Richard Dean Anderson and Charlton Heston would have had great chemistry, and you could have stretched the role out a lot longer because I think the actor had died while MacGyver was going on, and that's why they had to kill the character off.
Well, and Pete kept insisting on picking out his outfits. I'm sorry. That was really bad. To the Alfar family, I'm very sorry. He was a very brave man.
Yeah, and for a movie, I know it was made in the 80s, and I'm not taking anything away from Peter Weller, but RoboCop.
Charlton Heston as RoboCop?
Yeah. If it was, I know he was probably a lot older at that time, but he could have did it.
See, here's the thing about Leland Gaunt, him playing Leland Gaunt in Needful Things. You know, we grew up with Charlton Heston in Ten Commandments. You know, he's played Moses. He's played Brigham Young. He's known for these religious films, and so most people going in, you know, older, I hate to put it this way, but older folks that weren't, you know, our age, growing up on Stephen King, you know, you're thinking, oh, well, he's going to be the good guy, you know, and that would be a delicious subversion of what these people would be expecting.
Well, and it always was when Heston played a villain. Heston played a marvelous villain. You know, again, when he plays Richelieu, he's great. Or, and I cannot praise this movie enough, when he plays Long John Silver. And have you seen that version of Treasure Island?
Not in a long time, but I've seen it.
Really good. It holds up. It holds up. I mean, God, Oliver Reed, Jim Rum, and God, Peter Cushing as Blind Pew is just the most disgusting character on screen. And Heston in the middle of it all is so charming, and is this genuine kind of father figure for Will and or Jim, and yet when he turns evil,
and that's why I've always said Leland Gaunt was the devil, because the devil, you know, per the Bible, would be a very charming individual,
sure,
a very good-looking fellow. I mean, you know, some bozo shows up in a red outfit and horns. Nobody's going to listen to him.
It's a full-length Halloween special.
Yeah, you know, if it's a good-looking kind of older guy, you know, hey there, my friend.
Yeah,
what can I do for you today?
A man of wealth and taste.
Yes.
Now,
back to that.
Now Max von Sydow did a good job. You know, he did a good job.
Oh, Max von Sydow's great.
Yeah.
But Heston would have brought a lot of cultural baggage to it. And von Sydow brings some, because
Damn it. Come on. Really? Do I hit stop recording? Hello? Damn it. God damn it. Oh. Skype, please.
Okay.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joel?
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Edward G. Robinson character, and it just freezes Jewel. Always does. Wait till the Soylent Green talk.
Oh my goodness.
It is.
We'll have to reboot it multiple times.
I love you too, Saul. You know, and that's the thing. In Soylent Green, everybody talks about the cannibalism thing. That's not, I think, the really challenging thing that movie's talking about. I think it's the euthanasia stuff. Because it makes a good case for how to do it. And why.
I was talking about this with some younger coworkers. They had watched it, and they thought the premise was ridiculous. And it's like, but here's some things you have to understand. You know, there was a really big push, and I'm not, I don't sound like I'm condemning anybody, but the Catholic Church was like, no, you can't use contraceptive. And the world was growing and growing, and we had started hearing about the effects of all the pollution and everything. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, that to me, that premise is not so far fetched, but to them, it seemingly isn't. It's like, I think you need to look out your window a little bit more.
And yet, for burgeoning conservative Charlton Heston, it's also, in its own way, and I'm not making a joke here, it is a subtle commentary on recycling mania, because it's the ultimate recycling.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the movie Will Penny, what's you guys' favorite scene? Patrick?
Oh, I think all the Christmas stuff. For me, I mean, the action stuff is great, and it's really gut churning. But seeing Heston's character kind of let himself start to feel joy, yeah, and his wariness of it, but then how absolutely open-hearted he is before he catches himself and stuffs it back down. That's something that you don't see in movies very often. It's just an emotional moment and note. I can see movies, plenty of action scenes. I can't think of a movie that does that or does it as well. So for me, yeah, that.
Butch?
I don't know. I can pick one. When you said it, the first one, I'm going to go with that one. The first one that jumped to mind is when he rides into the ranch and the scene with Ben Johnson and the other riders. Ben Johnson, for a guy who started out as a cowboy and was a cowboy champion, he holds his own against Charlton Heston.
He's a very nuanced actor. Ben Johnson's very underrated.
Very. And there's a line where one of the other first thing is the amusing part is one of the other cowboys goes, "Hey, isn't that Bright Eyes?" And it was not an intentional riff on Planet of the Apes, because this came out the same time. So, yeah. But they're like, "Hey, oh, poor old Johnson," or whatever his name was, and Heston's like, "Yeah, they always, after they die, they're always good old Johnson." And I have come up with that several times in my life, where somebody you didn't care for, somebody you didn't like, and then something happens to them, they pass away, whatever. Oh, poor old Johnson, he was such a good guy. Now, we didn't always get along, but I sure did like him. You're like, bullshit.
Yeah.
I like that scene because, one, Ben Johnson is right there with him, and two, it's a very honest portrait of life, and whether it's a Western, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's contemporary life, that fits. It works. It's true, and that's I think that's for the whole film. Yeah. The dialogue is true, the characters are true. It feels like this is a true story, and it just with real people.
I wanted to comment on one thing with that, and that is the fact that it shows the desert well, but it doesn't do the desert porn thing, as Joel pointed out.
Yeah.
It makes what could be the spectacular mundane, which is exactly how a guy who lives there and deals with it all the time sees it. I'm sure he was stunned by the scenery at one point, but that was a long time ago. Now he's focusing on the elk and the cows and that stuff. That's his job.
We live here in the shadows of the Great Smoky Mountains, which is part of the Appalachian chain. And I don't know how many times I've heard people say, "Oh goodness, how do you live here and just not fall in love with that every day?" After a while, I don't even look at it. Don't even think of it, because it's like Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. That's a big tourist trap, and as a local, we might go through there and we might go somewhere, but and you kind of get blinded by it. So yeah.
The opening of my werewolf story is set in the Smoky Mountains.
No, wait a minute. What's your favorite scene before you jump over there, young man?
Life for life, 2 for 2. Donald Pleasance, my God! Listen, when he's threatening revenge from the Most High, he makes any version of Reverend Trask look sane and look like a saint.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, Trask. Imagine how Orville Trask would have. That man's a madman. He's a bit of a fanatic, I think. You know, yeah, he would make Trask say that easily.
Yeah, Robert Trask was like, you know what? I think I need to take a back seat here.
Your sheet of notes, Butch.
And this kind of ties in, according to Donald Pleasance, after filming his character's death scene, Heston came up to him and said, "That'll teach you to tangle with the leading man."
Yeah.
And it was funny. I was reading that, and it's like, to me, they like tried to make it sound like Heston was being a dick, and I was just like, I could see both of them just look at each other and start laughing. I mean,
well, because it's a movie, it's make believe.
Yeah,
It's fiction, for God's sake. Guys, what do you give this movie 1 out of 10?
Oh, 10.
Yeah.
10.
There's no, my criteria for 10 is there's no room for improvement.
Yeah. I think
certain films. Oh, I'm sorry, Joel. Go ahead.
No, I really love how they cut, because you guys are right about Ben Johnson, who doesn't get enough praise, I feel. People, when I watch this movie and people say, well, Jamie Lee Curtis made Terror Train watchable. I said, so did Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, when you watch Ben Johnson in that movie, he's really interesting because he acts like a magician, but he also he's the first person who starts discovering the bodies. And with this movie, you're right, he easily holds his own with Charlton Heston. Ben Johnson was really, really underrated as an actor. By the way, he's in Hannah High as well.
Yeah.
Good, Butch. Sorry.
You were saying about, what would you change? Nothing. Certain films I love. I'm going to jump right to my favorite film of all time, Dawn of the Dead, 1978. I found out, there's the European cut, the so-called Argento cut. There's the extended cut. I have a copy of the Mall Hours edition, which is like almost 2 hours. And I enjoy having them. And there's a super long cut on YouTube. But the better film is the theatrical, which is really the director's cut, because that's what he wanted. And it's nice to have this other stuff. But if I want to watch it, just like what, if there was, say we found 20 minutes of Will Penny scenes, would I like to watch them? Sure. Would I want them added to the film? No.
Yeah,
this movie.
It's like Major Dundee.
Yeah.
It's like Major Dundee's a good movie. I don't think Major Dundee necessarily needs more Major Dundee.
No.
It's major enough.
Speaking of which, I told you I read both of the Heston books. When I opened up into the arena, I turned right to where he talks about where he charges Sam Peckinpah.
Oh, really?
And I was like, shit, I wished I had thought to get this out and look at it when we did Major Dundee, because he even says, I don't know if I was going to run him through or not. And it was just like, because Heston's pretty laid back.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, everybody knows you can push somebody too far.
Sure.
But he's like, I got on my horse and I charged at him. I didn't know if I was going to stop or not. And it's just like,
he didn't say that about Franklin Schaffner.
He did not.
But I'll tell you this: the interview I saw from when Charlton Heston was on TCM, and he was talking about Major Dundee. They brought up that he did it. He ended up doing it for free. He goes, yeah, by accident. And he said, I did trust Sam. He goes, and things just, they didn't pan out the way I thought they would. He goes, I always wanted to work with him, and he's a great director. Just things happened, And Charlton Heston seems like the type of guy, he doesn't try to hold a grudge. He just, okay, this happened, so what?
It would have been great to see him make a movie with Sam Fuller.
Ooh.
Yeah, Big Red One, something like that.
It would have been really good to see him make a better movie with John Carpenter instead of Mouth of Madness. God.
Well, it's good to see him in the movie, though. I mean, it's not a film, but Heston's perfect in what he plays.
I have still never finished that film. I can't, and I'm a pretty big John Carpenter fan, and
it doesn't make you want to finish it.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I told Patrick about Memoirs of an Invisible Man. You're not missing anything.
No, I mean, I've read it online. I know what happens, and
You took one for the team by doing that one.
I watched that movie.
In fact, I didn't do it either.
I watched that movie 3 times. I watched Mouth of Madness 4 times just because I'll be reviewing it soon too. And it's just like, I love John Carpenter as a director. He's very brilliant. He knows what he's doing. And it's just like, to make a movie, even though it's Sutter Kane, it's basically about Stephen King, and it makes no sense. None. Like, to have the writer, it would have made more sense if the writer wasn't willing to commit to his work and his work somehow started to come to life. That would have been terrifying. That would have been like actual terror.
we kind of saw that with Dark Half.
Right. Like it just didn't make much sense. But yeah, it's look, I love the actors in the movie. They all do a good job. Like everybody in the movie, like doesn't phone it in or nothing. Heston does a great. I love how they don't remember Sam Neill's character like ever showing up. That was really, Heston sells that so good. Like not remembering him. I mean, it's one of the best scenes in the movie to me, in my opinion. If you want to look forward to a scene in that movie, that's it right there. Heston, like no selling ever meeting Sam Neill's character, is brilliantly done, in my view. But yeah, Memoirs of an Invisible Man wasn't good, but this movie is a perfect 10. Will Penny, it just from start to finish. And I do love the fact that they put Christmas in this movie, because you do have a mother and a son who's been abandoned, but also chose to help somebody who was a complete stranger to them in every way. In Will Penny, they did, as much as I know he told them that they have to leave his shack, they did not have to help him, but they did.
Well, no, he like tells them, when I come back, you gotta be gone.
Yeah.
So it's not like, get your butt out. He's like,
Yeah.
okay, look, I'm sympathetic, but I got my orders, so and in my mind, that always makes me think you never know what little bit of compassion towards someone, even if it maybe isn't that big of a deal, how that can come back. Because I mean, this movie's over the halfway point if they don't take him back. He dies up there, and that Bruce Stern does God knows what with Will Penny's corpse. But it comes about, I think, and again, I think that's life, because sometimes you do some small kindness and you hits that person at the right point, and they never forget it. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It seems very real. It seems very lifelike, as opposed to a movie.
Yeah, it really does. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have to ask. No, is there anything you guys want to add about Will Penny?
It's been a long day. I am pennied out.
I know now. What are you doing next Friday, Patrick? Do you want to join me and Butch next Friday?
What are we watching?
Well, I don't. I hate to do another revisited tour, but we did do Once Upon a Time in the West without Patrick, and we do need to do that.
That's not a movie that I think you're going to get a lot out of with me.
Really?
Yeah, I like the movie. It's a little long. There's a little of that movie goes a long way for me, and I have a tough time with Charles Bronson without a mustache.
Yeah, Bronson's mustache was so afraid of him it was afraid to connect. Great actor.
I'm just saying that because you wouldn't get my best.
How about next Friday we do Die Hard?
Sure. That's a very good movie. I saw that at the Egyptian when it opened.
I did not see that movie until years after it came out on VHS.
Well, let's talk about it.
Because Bruce Willis, at the time, everybody knew him from Moonlighting.
Yeah.
And I was like, Bruce Willis, the bald guy from Moonlighting, is an action hero? And I put it off for years, and I got lucky and saw The Killer with Chow Yun-Fat. as opposed to Die Hard. So I never got really into the Die Hard stuff. I'm over here watching, the King of Cool, Chow Yun Fat, and I'm like, okay, you watch your bald guy go through his ductwork. Okay, I'm going to watch this really cool guy over here. And seriously, until like it was on USA or something, I never really watched it.
But you like a good Reginald Bell Johnson movie.
Well, doesn't everybody?
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So he's the star of that film. It's actually the only Die Hard movie I've seen. I've not seen any of the others in that franchise.
I've seen so many bits and pieces of 2. I've seen it, but I've never sat down and watched Die Hard 2.
Yeah.
Because I kept thinking, wow, this is basically Die Hard 1 all over again. It's Home Alone 2 for him.
The idea of Die Hard sequels, I hate to say this, but it sort of sullies the concept of Die Hard. That this is a one-time, life-changing experience for, this guy.
Die Hard 2 does come off a bit underrated. I do think it's well filmed for what it is. But I'll tell you this, to me, the best entries in the franchise, 1 and 3. Die Hard with a Vengeance is really good.
Heston in the Bruce Willis role.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You really like 3? Die Hard 3? That's the only one I've seen in the theaters. And it was when the beginning of Samuel L. Jackson was rubbing off on me, and I was getting tired of him and being and everything for a while.
I'll tell you what, Jeremy Irons is amazing in that movie.
Jeremy Irons is probably amazing in every movie, I think.
There's a new movie out that he's very good in that I recommend horror fans see called Cello.
Okay.
Really good in that. Cello's a good movie. It's too long, but it's good.
Link to the Dark Shadows Day book about is going to be in the description box. Go pick that up if you haven't already. Patrick, Butch, guys, this was a blast.
This was a real treat. It's a favorite movie of mine. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Next Friday, Die Hard, the original. So,
it.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Good luck to your football team, Butch.
Take care.
63-21.
Yeah, I'm not loving my Seahawks odds this weekend. That's all I'm gonna say. We're not making the playoffs.
Hey! I know you want to wrap it up just really quick. I wore this jersey to work because I worked with a San Diego Chargers fan, and I said, "Oh, hey, let me take this off. I don't want to, hurt your feelings." And I have a Raider shirt underneath it.
Oh Lord, you're loaded for bear.
He was actually a good sport about it, but It was kind of funny because
I don't know what any of those things mean.
The Raiders played last night and they beat them 63-21. Okay. And when I was leaving today, I said, "Hey Cody, what time? Do you know what time it is?" He starts telling me. I said, "I think it's 63-21."
Oh Lord,
it is not.
Chargers coach got fired today.
And GM.
And GM, yeah, they're both gone.
Maybe they can with McDaniels and what's his name.
Yeah, many people are calling for Tomlin's job out here. So
anyway, thanks again.
See you, Patrick. See you, Butch. Bye.